What if I told you the ancient world's understanding of the universe, holds these surprising clues to our own lives? Well, you're about to find out because we're going deep, deep, deep into a text that's captivated scholars for centuries. Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma.
Right, and we're going beyond just the dates and the names, right? We're trying to uncover the deeper meaning, the symbolism, especially, and this is a big one that might send shivers down your spine, the serpent.
Okay, so when we talk about Pike in this book, what's the big takeaway? Why should our listeners even care about this?
Well, Pike, he's really guiding us through this labyrinth of ancient thought, right?
Mm.
Connecting all these cultures and their mythologies, like showing how they all grappled with these universal mysteries, life, death, rebirth.
Yeah, it's like he's piecing together this giant puzzle, and the pieces are scattered across different times and places, but Pike helps us make sense of it all.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is that the serpent, it keeps popping up in these stories like a central character in this whole cosmic drama.
Okay, so let's rewind a bit. Take us back to that time when people, they lived in tune with the natural world, right? Like when they gazed up at the night sky and actually understood what they were looking at.
Right. Imagine a time when the stars weren't just like twinkling lights, but powerful celestial beings, guiding the seasons, influencing life on Earth. The ancients, they were keen observers of the heavens. They noticed how the sun's journey through the constellations, it coincided with changes in the natural world. The coming of spring, the heat of summer, the harvest, and then, of course, the cold, dark days of winter.
And this is where the serpent's connection to the cosmos, it gets really interesting, right? Because Pike talks about how ancient cultures, especially the Egyptians, they wove these celestial observations into these elaborate myths.
Exactly. And the serpent, it plays a crucial role in these stories.
So give us an example, how did the ancients connect the serpent to the cosmos?
Well, let's look at the myth of Osiris, the Egyptian god of life, death, and rebirth. His story, it's like a mirror of the sun's annual cycle.
Okay, I'm following you. So how does the serpent fit into all of this?
Well, the serpent, often depicted as the scorpion in Egyptian astrology, it becomes this symbol of the destructive forces that lead to Osiris's death.
Oh, hold on. So we're talking about the autumnal equinox here, right? When sun appears to lose its strength and the days get shorter and colder, it's like a period of decline and death in nature. And the ancients, they saw this reflected in the constellation Scorpio.
You got it. And just like the scorpion's sting, right? It brings pain, but also the potential for healing. The serpent, it embodies this duality, this idea of negative forces, darkness, but also positive power, transformation, renewal.
Wow. It's like they saw these celestial events playing out in their own lives.
Exactly. And it wasn't just the Egyptians. Pike, he talks about how the serpent pops up in myths and legends all over the world.
Okay, so we're talking about a universal symbol here, right?
Absolutely. Think about the serpent in the Garden of Eden, right? Or the serpent entwined around the staff of Asclepius in Greek mythology.
Oh, right, the symbol for medicine and healing.
Exactly. It's fascinating how this one symbol, the serpent, it transcends cultures and time.
So are you saying that we should still be paying attention to this ancient wisdom today? What can we learn from these myths and symbols in the modern world?
That's a great question. While we may not look to the stars for answers in the same way the ancients did, the serpent, as a symbol of transformation, renewal, and the cyclical nature of life and death, it still holds this profound relevance for us.
So even though we have science and technology now, these ancient stories still have something to teach us.
Exactly. Think about it. You face challenges, you experience loss, you go through changes, but you also have this incredible potential for growth and renewal, right?
Right, it's like the serpent shedding its skin. It's leaving behind the old to embrace the new.
That's a powerful image.
Yeah.
And honestly, we've only just begun to scratch the surface.
There's so much more to explore when it comes to the serpent and its symbolism.
Exactly. And Pike, he goes even deeper, highlighting how the serpent wasn't just a creature of darkness, but also a guide, a source of wisdom. He even brings up Tout, the Phoenician god of learning, who connected the serpent to knowledge and even immortality.
So are you saying that the serpent isn't inherently evil? That it can be both a force for destruction and creation?
That's the thing about these ancient symbols. They often embody duality. They represent these opposing forces that are at the same time interconnected. They're essential to the balance of the universe.
I'm starting to see why the serpent has captivated people's imaginations for so long. It's this complex, multi-layered symbol, right? Representing both our fears and our aspirations.
Exactly. In fact, he dives right into those complexities. Like, he explores the serpent's connection to, get this, time itself, citing its cyclical nature as this metaphor for the constant cycle of, well, destruction and creation that governs, like, everything.
Right? Like the serpent shedding its skin, emerging anew. It's like this visual representation of that cycle, right? This reminder that death, it isn't the end, but like a necessary part of renewal.
Exactly. And this concept, it was central to so many ancient philosophies. They saw time as a continuous loop, not a straight line.
Hmm.
And the serpent, with its whole shedding thing, it embodies that idea perfectly.
Okay, so we've talked about the serpent's connection to the cosmos, to transformation, to time. But Pike also dives into the more practical side of things, right? Like how the ancients actually used their observations of the heavens to guide their lives.
Absolutely. Pike explains how these early astronomers, priests, philosophers, they developed these sophisticated systems for tracking the movements of the sun, moon, stars, the whole shebang.
Mm.
And they noticed that certain celestial events coincided with, specific seasons and natural phenomena.
Like, for example, the heliacal rising of Sirius, the dog star. The Egyptians, they associated that with the flooding of the Nile, right?
Yeah.
Which was huge for their agriculture.
Exactly. And this is where those constellations that we know as the zodiac, this is where they come into play. Pike describes how the ancients divided the heavens into these 12 sections, each one represented by a constellation, forming this belt that the sun seemed to travel throughout the year.
So each month, the sun would be in a different house or sign of the zodiac. And those signs, Taurus, the bull, Leo, the lion, they'd all have their own meanings and associations.
You got it. And those associations, they weren't random. They were based on observations of the natural world. Like, for example, the constellation Taurus, it was linked to spring, the return of fertility, because back then, the vernal equinox, when day and night are equal, it happened when the sun entered Taurus.
So the Egyptians, they saw this connection, the sun in Taurus, renewal of life, and they incorporated that symbolism into their myth of Osiris.
Precisely. And this is where the vernal equinox, it gets really interesting. Picture the Egyptians 4,000 years ago, right? They see the disappearance of Boots, this constellation they knew as the husbandman.
Wait, so a constellation just vanishes?
Well, not exactly vanishes. It's called ephenism, this disappearance. Anyway, for the Egyptians, this coincided with, the decline of life in the fall. They saw it as Osiris descending into the underworld. And get this, it lasted about 40 days, which became their 40 days of mourning for Osiris.
Wow, they really wove those observations into their myths.
Oh, absolutely.
Phew.
They were meticulous. But then, boom, the reappearance of Aldebaran, the brightest star in Taurus, life returns. The resurrection of Osiris, rebirth, the start of a new year. These myths, informed by the stars, they became the foundation of their whole understanding of life and death.
It's incredible how they use the stars to understand, everything. But Pike also suggests that these myths, these symbols, they might have, deeper, more philosophical meanings too, right?
He does. He suggests that the ancients were using these celestial stories as allegories to, convey truths about what it means to be human.
So not just literal stars and constellations, but symbolic representations of something much bigger.
Exactly. It's like they encoded wisdom within these myths, using, the language of the cosmos to teach us about ourselves.
So it's up to us to decode those messages, right?
Exactly. To look beyond the literal interpretations and uncover the hidden meanings, those universal truths that connect us to something much, much bigger than ourselves. And that brings us back to the serpent.
Okay, so I gotta ask, we've explored the serpent's celestial origins, its symbolism of transformation and renewal, its connection to time, its role in all these different mythologies. But how does this ancient wisdom, how does it apply to us today,
Well, that's the thing, right? Even though we understand the universe in a completely different way than the ancients did, there's something about the serpent that just, it speaks to us on this deep level. Think about it. The serpent sheds its skin, right? It lets go of the old, embraces the new. It's like this powerful metaphor for personal growth, for transformation.
So you're saying we can look at the serpent as a symbol of those inevitable cycles, right? The ups and downs, the challenges, the opportunities for growth that we all go through.
Exactly. Just like the ancients, they observed those cycles in the cosmos, and they saw those cycles reflected in their own lives. We can find meaning in those cycles too. We can learn to embrace change, let go of what's no longer serving us, and ultimately emerge stronger, wiser.
Yeah, it makes you think about those times when you've had to, like, face a really difficult situation or confront a fear or even just make a change that felt scary at first, but it led to something better.
Exactly. And those are the moments, right? When the serpent symbolism, it can be so powerful because it reminds us that even in the face of darkness, of uncertainty, there's always this potential for renewal, for transformation.
And Pike, he even draws this parallel between the serpent and those who, like, bring light and knowledge to the world, right? Like, he talks about how some ancient cultures saw the serpent as a symbol of, like, wisdom, enlightenment.
He does. And that's a really interesting perspective to consider because the serpent, it's often linked to this idea of hidden knowledge, these mysteries of the universe, right?
Mhm.
But it can also be seen as this guide, leading us towards a greater understanding, greater
It's
awareness.
like that whole thing with the serpent in the Garden of Eden, right?
Yeah.
Tempting Eve with the fruit of knowledge, but also in a way, like, initiating her into this new level of consciousness.
Exactly. It just goes to show that the serpent, even in its more, controversial roles, it can be seen as this catalyst for change, for growth, because it challenges our assumptions, forces us to confront like uncomfortable truths, and ultimately it helps us to evolve.
So what you're saying is we should all, like, go out and start worshiping serpents.
No, 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 not at all. But I do think there's a lot of value in like revisiting these ancient symbols, exploring their deeper meanings,
Hmm.
because they give us this really unique lens through which to view the world, our place in it. And they remind us of the interconnectedness of all things, that cyclical nature of life, the transformative power of change.
So it's not about taking these myths literally, it's about understanding the deeper truths they represent, right?
Exactly. And as we try to navigate the complexities of like modern life, I think it's more important than ever to tap into those ancient sources of wisdom, to,
Yeah.
to look for those deeper meanings, those universal truths that connect us to something much larger than ourselves.
It's incredible, right? How something as simple as a serpent can hold so much wisdom. It makes you wonder, like, what other secrets the ancient world might be holding on to, just waiting for us to rediscover them.
That's the beauty of this whole journey, right? There's
Mhm.
always more to learn, more to explore. And the ancient world, it offers us this incredible wealth of wisdom. It's just up to us to dig in and uncover those treasures.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm definitely feeling inspired to do some more research. This deep dive into the symbolism of the serpent, it's been eye-opening to say the least. And it's a good reminder that even in these ancient traditions, we can find insights that are still so relevant to us today. Insights that can help us make sense of our own lives, our place in, well, everything.